Alright guys, what is going on? I'm bringing back the Retargeting 101 Part 4, just making a little update on this series. If you don't know about this series, if you scroll down on my channel, or this will be in a playlist, I did a Part 1, a Part 2, and a Part 3 about 4 or 5 months ago. And I basically wanted to come in here and give a little update as to, what I'm doing differently and what still works out of that series. I know it seems like it's older, so it's a little bit outdated, but it's really not that outdated. And I'm going to be covering exactly what I mean in this video. So the one question that has came up a lot since I made that video since I made that series is, when is a good time to start doing lookalikes? And there's basically two rules that I follow. Is for one, you can start as soon as the custom audience turns green and says that it's active. And says that it's ready. If your audience says that it's ready, you can do retargeting. So there's a difference between saying when can you start lookalikes and when should you start lookalikes. When should you? So basically you can try it once you have a little bit over 15 sales. This is like the minimum. I wouldn't even really mess with it if I had less than this. But basically there's a pretty good chance that it'll work if you start around 15 sales. I'd say the chances are around 25 to 30%. Doesn't really work every time. As a matter of fact, most of the time I don't see it work this early on. But it is worth testing if you're trying to make a little bit of extra money. And we'll go into like what budget you should start at and how you can maximize it when you're just starting out and you just have a little bit of traffic. Because if you only have 15 sales or a few hundred link clicks, you don't want to have like a $5 a day retargeting ad set going, because it's basically just going to like spend the money, even though it's only going to reach a certain amount of people. So we'll talk about that a little bit later. But if it doesn't work at 15 sales, I would wait until you have 40 to 50 sales. 40 to 50 sales is kind of like probably the best time to start. And usually around the time when you have 40 to 50 sales, you're making 3 to 5 sales every day. So you're already starting to see some consistency. It's already starting to grow pretty well. But even then, there is a chance that it won't work at that time. It doesn't mean that retargeting is not going to work. It just means that maybe you did it too early, or your pixel doesn't have enough momentum to optimize the right way yet. So if it still doesn't work, just keep trying every 40 sales or so. Make a new campaign, make fresh audiences, whatever you want to do, because eventually it will work. Personally, I don't really start a retargeting campaign until a certain store hits $500 days fairly consistently, and the main reason is because I want to focus on the cold traffic until we have that doing very good, and then I'll focus a little bit on the retargeting. And that's just what I see what works best for me. And any time early is almost like a waste of time for me, but maybe for you it's not, and you want to give it a shot. So we'll move on. So another question is, do all of the old strategies still work? Like all the same strategies that I described in part 1, 2, and 3. And the answer is yes, they're all very relevant. I still do them exactly the same with time frames and different posts, the different audiences and stuff. I still make all of those audiences. The only difference is the way that I introduce them. The only difference is like the order that I make them and how I scale it and stuff like that. Introducing retargeting to your ad account. Basically, I always have a separate campaign dedicated to my retargeting ad sets. Basically, this allows you to just have one campaign called retargeting, and you can do all of your retargeting in that one campaign. It's just a lot more organized, and also it allows each retargeting optimization to help each other. So when starting out, I'll start with the basic, most broad PV 180, add to cart 180, and initiate checkout 180, and all the video views in a new campaign if you're doing a video. If you're not doing a video, then just do PV, ATC, and IC. But if those work, or if one or two of them work, because not all of them are going to work, but maybe sometimes, but I like to add one new retargeting ad set a day. And you can keep on going with the basic audiences, or you can get into some of the strategies that I talked about in part 1, 2, and 3, where you test different time frames, different budgets, which we'll talk about in a minute, which is new, different posts, different audiences, like just testing one new thing a day just to keep your mind flowing with new ideas, and also keep having new results coming in, so that when you make a new retargeting audience, you can see what's working and then add on to that, and eventually you'll just have a bunch of retargeting ad sets working. And I actually did this, and I got a single store generating about $700 a day in sales, around $400 a day in profit of just retargeting ad sets. That wasn't even including the cold traffic. So doing this can definitely make you more money. So this is one thing that I have learned between the time that I made the first 3 parts and now. And it's kind of something that I learned on accidentally. I was kind of paying attention to the way that audiences were spending and the way that cost per purchase were affected by retargeting. And basically I learned that 99% of the time, retargeting will spend your full budget no matter how many people see the ad. I used to just set it to $5 a day and just let it spend, but I wasn't really paying attention. Like, I'm spending $5 to get in front of 100 people, which doesn't make sense. So I started doing the math. I wanted to know how many people does $1 reach in my retargeting campaign on average, just an average number. And I see across the board, across most stores that I grow, you reach about 100 people for $1, maybe a little less, maybe a little more. And I find that to be average. And let's say that that's for your page view 180 audience. Okay, so if you're only getting 100 link clicks a day, it doesn't make sense to have more than a $1 a day budget on that single ad set. And the reason is because you're getting 100 new people into the audience every day, and if you spend $1 a day on your retargeting, it's plenty to show your retargeting ad to everybody new who comes into that audience. Now, that's just to cover it one time, but if you want, you can put the budget to $2, and then that's enough money to show it to each people in the audience 2 times a day, which is really good. And this is kind of like a metric that I use to keep the cost per purchases down. And especially in the beginning, I see really, really low cost per purchases on ad sets that have a budget of $1 or $2, just because it's not spending the full $5. It's reaching the same amount of people. It's just spending less money. And this example goes for the same way, just opposite. If you're getting 3,000 link clicks a day, it would be better to have a budget of 25 to 30 per day. Maybe a little less, maybe a little more, but it's the perfect amount to reach one new person every day, which essentially is what we want retargeting to do. But if you have your budget at 30 per day and you're only getting 100 link clicks a day, a big percentage of the amount of time, it's going to spend 30 even if it only reaches 100 people. And this is kind of what I noticed, and I noticed that if I just spent the right amount for the right amount of people, my cost per purchases would go be really low, because it's just limiting the amount that I spend, but it's reaching the same amount of people. So understanding that, we can take a look at this and saying, when you're starting out with retargeting, using lower budgets can increase your average ROAS by a lot, mainly because you're not getting a ton of traffic. So when I start out with retargeting, I usually start with lower budgets, $2 or $3, depending on what time I'm starting out, how many clicks I'm getting a day, how many add to carts I'm getting a day, stuff like that. And then using higher budgets as your audience fill up faster can increase the amount of volume your retargeting pushes. So in this example, if you're getting 3,000 link clicks a day, you wouldn't just want one ad set spending $5 a day, because that's only going to reach 500 to 600 people. But if you try retargeting at $30 per day, the cost per purchase could be the same, because it's able to reach 3,000 people and get its full money's worth, which means it's just going to push more volume and make you more money. So understanding this kind of puts the average ROAS of your campaigns a lot higher. And this is something that I didn't include in the 1, 2, and 3, in the part 1, 2, and 3, because I didn't know it yet. I just kind of figured this out in the past 4 or 5 months or so. So I definitely wanted to come in here and give you guys a little update on how retargeting is doing, if you can still use the Retargeting 101 series to learn about this stuff. And the answer is yes, it's still very relevant. And I hope that this provided a really good update. If you like this video and you got good value out of it, or if you like the series, leave a like, drop a comment, make sure that you subscribe. But as for this video, this is Brewer, and I'm out. Peace.